Cheers, everybody, YouTubers, Warcrafters, Raiders. Video time. I already did a kill video with a breakdown, but I wanted to do a replay and then talk about multi-targeting. Now, the issue that we have as far as kill orders and targeting property, multi-targeting property, is that we are not doing it as well as we could. We are also not positioning ourselves to be as successful as possible when it came to the execution last night. Now, did we get the kill? We did. But again, what I want us to start to work on is getting out of this position where we're succeeding because we're over-gearing. I want us to succeed because of our execution. That's fair to ask for. So we're going to take a look here at damage done. We'll look at the total amount. And this is total damage done to NPCs. What you'll see is who's targeting multiple things and who is it. Okay? So what we need to make sure that we're improving on is that we're trying to dump as much damage as possible into our primary targets as they come through. Remember that when there is a kill order present, it's our goal to utilize that and do it as quickly as possible. Now, if you don't have, for example, a target macro available, or for example, a way that you want to rotate into the targets, then that's something that you need to go ahead and either talk to me or talk to somebody else about, so that way you can find the necessary material so you know exactly what you're going through. Now, remember, in the comparisons that I've done in previous videos, you can use the logs and you can look at a specific point of like, okay, well, when this happens, what did they do? And you can compare yourself to another person and see how their performance goes up by like 1 million at a spot, and yours doesn't, because of how they're approaching the fight. Now, there's two factors that play into this. One is targeting, and two is position. If you're not in a position and you're not standing still, you're not going to be able to do what you need to do. Also, if you're not targeting and then not using the right rotation, then you're going to minimize your total threshold to the point. Now, what you have to realize is it a multi-target situation or is it a single target situation, right? Those two questions have to be answered on a consistent basis, so that way you'll be able to put yourself into a position of success each time. Now, what is Archimonde? The Archimonde fight is attack this target. Okay, attack this target. Now attack this target. Okay, back to that target. Okay, now attack this target, attack, and that's how it goes over and over and over. So it's kind of like accelerate, stop, accelerate, stop, accelerate, stop, when it comes to your approach of how you want to be able to deal with it. What we need to do as a team is start, instead of tunneling, start improving on that total damage threshold into the targets. Now, like I said, this is the total damage done to all the NPCs as they came out. And now let's look at each individual one, right? Now we look at Archimonde. Certain classes, and I'm not even going to give an excuse. You need to sit there and attack all the targets properly. So make sure that you're doing your maximum amount of damage threshold into the targets as can be done, okay? We see Archimonde. We have a good block here. We have a couple of high profilers that we're working strictly on Archimonde. We need to get more balance all the way through here and more balance into each one of the primary targets as they come through, okay? So the first one we see is Doomfire Spirit. We have a melee on top by 700,000, okay? What we need to do is, instead of like seeing this downward scale being so prevalent between, for example, Baloney and Trakara, it needs to be relatively closer together like that. If you look at top performances across the board, even consistent performances, what you'll see is like a smooth transition from somebody who did it first and did the most, you know, because of gear or attack or class, and then it scales clean. Here we don't have that. We have this huge scale that goes all the way through when it involves the Doomfire Spirit. Doomfire Spirit is directly relative to the amount of fire present on the floor. So got to make sure that we're targeting him as quickly as possible. Next after that, when you start seeing, is the Hellfire Deathcaller, which is always going to spawn right before you have to move because of the fire. Now again, remember I was talking about like when they will have a little cleaner slope. We clearly do, and then we had a drop off, and then another group, and then another drop off. Okay? Everyone should be focusing damage into the Hellfire Deathcallers every single time as quickly as possible. Because if you get it off the tank, then the tank lives. Tank dies, then we use a res. Tank dies again, or somebody else dies, it's a wipe. So it prevents wipes, plus it just does a ton of damage. We need to get it out of the fight as quickly as possible so that we can focus on other things, like the boss. Then we move into the next one, right? We start having to deal with these Death Callers, but also the Overfiends and the Dreadstalkers, right? So what we see here is on the Overfiend, we had 3 people, 3.5 people attacking it at a huge, huge volume. And then we had a huge volume of people not attacking it. Now, the reason why, for example, Ninjutsu here was doing 180k because he was doing Divine Storm and whatnot is because we have them plus the Dreadstalkers coming out at the same time, right? Look where Ninjutsu's at with using Divine Storm on the Dreadstalkers, 2.67 million. So remember, when 4 things come out and you have an Overfiend and 3 Dreadstalkers present, killing them as quickly as possible puts you into a position where, because of the lower health of the Dreadstalkers, they end up dying, and then you can focus into the Overfiend in your rotation. Plus, eliminating the Dreadstalkers means that any magic casting class won't get interrupted and doesn't have to get out of the circle, and then everybody that's standing in circles will stop taking the damage from them exploding on them, right? And if you're going and eliminating that, that allows everybody to be able to do more damage because everybody's standing still, focusing on their target, versus actually moving around trying to avoid stuff in conjunction with, you know, the other mechanics going on at that point, the chaos and also the chains. Then we go to the last one, which is the last 2 groupings, which is the Infernal Doombringers and the Living Shadows. Let's take a look at the Infernals. The Infernals, we have Chikara, and then we have all the way down here Dan and Jav doing 88,000. So we got 3.1 million, and then we have 80,000, right? Now, that means one thing, that they were either in the other zone, doing damage like they were supposed to, or they were out of position. When you look at the replay, when we watch that in just a second, you'll see who was out of position, who wasn't. They also died, so they might not have been present during the time when they come in. But again, we have this block. We have really high, somewhat high, and then we have a block, and then we have a descending order. It needs to be a clean, conscious descending of amount of damage, focusing into the targets and properly burning them down as quickly as possible. Don't be afraid to immediately engage yourself and put yourself into a position with the Infernal Doombringer and make it come to you because you blew up on it. Because everyone else is going to be blowing it up too. Like, nobody should be attacking Archimonde during this time period. Everybody's damage should be going into the Doombringers after dodging all of the Reign of Chaos, killing them, and then immediately appropriating themselves back onto Archimonde or onto the Living Spirits. Now let's take a look at the Spirits. I'm sorry, I keep saying Spirits is Shadows, Living Shadows. There were 34 Living Shadows total, coming out of 4 portals, with 3 portals being active rotations and then 4th portal being a sacrifice team. What we have here is 2 people that were on it, and remember, Jav was calling it out constantly, like, everybody on Shadows, Hunters on Shadows, etc. And then what we have here is a much lower overall production, which is half of what they did. Again, we have this huge scale without the total amount being present, okay? So what we need to do is tighten up in this area here. And all range should be trying to do as much damage as possible to the Shadows as consistently as possible, because they reduce healing by 40% for 45 seconds, and they do about 100,000 damage when they blow up on the person. So it's pretty critical that they get taken down as quickly as possible throughout the entire encounter. Overall, we did have, I want to talk about healing for a quick second. Overall, we had Masset, who is 739, come along and ended up helping out huge when it came to the total healing, and we had a 5 heal. Now, if Masset's not available, that means we're going to have to 4 heal, more than likely. What we need to do is find out, Milka's at 709. So we need to figure out what we can do for Cortani, and we need to figure out what we can do for Sills to put ourselves in a position so that way we can get their overall output up during the final phase, for example, when most of the damage is coming through. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look. Now, as far as like comparing, first thing first, like, I'm not going to compare each one of them to figure out what they can do. That's your job. As a player, you need to make sure that you're doing a comparison when you're underperforming, okay? So let's take a look at the replay. We'll go to full screen. We're going to run it at 2 times. I've got a video attached to it now, so if you click on the video, it'll bring that up and it'll show the replay available that's through YouTube now. So we had kind of a iffy pull, and then we put the Doomfire in a bad spot to start with. But we were able to settle it out. What we need to do is see tighter groupings until we need to spread. Right here and right here, that's too close to melee. Be further away. That's the stack, and then everybody's going to move back. Now remember, we put up those arrows. Another thing too, if you look here. So what we have here, after the Doomfire comes out, we've all moved and whatnot, and we've had to deal with the Desecrate. And we also had to have dealt with the Knockup. We need to get back to our 2 points. And then as far as running all the way out here, like Alec did, we don't need to do that. The fire is coming out like this, and then it moves towards the person. What you want to do is as soon as you're targeted, like if everybody's right here, which they should be, everybody should be collapsed, the spirit's going to come and bring the fire towards. If you immediately engage and go boom and get right down to here, like for example, where this desecration is, you'll cause the fire to come up, and then it's going to trail after you. And you can literally wrap it in on yourself. Also, you can sit there, and as soon as you come to here, you can either zip back through the group like that, or you can run through the fire. You're going to get 1 to 2 stacks. But if you're stacked with all the other healers, what's happening? You're getting 3 to 4 healers worth of AoE heals being dumped into you. So you'll be perfectly fine. But what we want to do is try to contain the fire in a small area and not overextend ourselves so far away. Because, like, say for example, you're all the way out here like Alec is, and then all of a sudden we have to run back across. That means you're going to have to shoot all the way over to here before you even get back. That is a long time not being on target. Right? Let's continue. So, really the big issue that you're seeing is that we're just not tight. We're just not tight. See, we have a couple late movements. We have a, what we do is we want to make sure that we're moving together as we come across. Make sure that we're targeting the proper targets. Again, excessive movement. Alec ended up coming way over here. Now watch the stack. Everybody should be in here. And okay, so let's talk about stack, right? So until the dogs come out and start putting the AoE on the ground, we can be much tighter than this. See how we're kind of spread now? So that means, for example, fire's here, and then we have to move. That means all these people here could be targeted with the fire, which means all these people here are going to have to run through it. Archimonde is here. We should be much closer into the target on a consistent basis right there, okay? As far as for dealing with the chaoses, let's see if we can find a clean one of the chaos being cast. Okay, so that's a shackle. So we got one out automatically, boom, boom, boom. With shackles, we want to break them we want the first person to go immediately. So shackle gets called, or you see shackle called, you get the mark above your head, whatever. Whoever's player 1, who's alphabetical, it goes A to Z, in case anybody was curious about that. You need to make sure that you engage and step out and pop it right away. And then number 2 needs to follow a couple of seconds later, 2-3 seconds later, and then number 3, you just monitor and then break, okay? Another thing too is when you come back, make sure that you're settled in real good right there. Here comes a lure. That was a much better movement. Good spread all the way across. But see, then we came back. Now remember, when we have the ads coming in, they're going to be coming in through here. What we need to do is get Archimonde here, and the tanks need to be in here with the melee. And then range can be, for example, right here. Like right now what we have is everybody right here, when we really need to be closer to there. See, we got an outlier. Somebody went early on a lure. Alex stepping in right here. We always want to take everything out into this section and into this section. We don't want to sit there and have it where we're taking stuff to here, for example, consistently. Because if you get caught with a lure, you can put the fire there. The fire spreads because of the amount present. And then all of a sudden we're dealing with that. Now see, look at all the additional movement that's going to go on with the fiends out because the fiends aren't getting killed as quickly as they could be. Here's 40%, first group. Okay, so what I want us to take a look at this point, here's Archimonde. The group's going to go in. Here's, for example, a range. And here's the first living shadow to come out, right? Since the portal's going to be here or here, living shadows are going to come out of the center of it consistently. They're going to come towards a random individual that's in this space here. So if you're all outliers like that, okay, you're not going to be able to engage the target as quickly as you can. Now, the two targets that you're going to be focusing on until we have the Reign of Chaos come through and then the Infernals present are right here and right here, right? So attack point A, attack point B. If you want to be as effective as possible, what we want to see is range, somewhere in here, healing, melee, Archimonde, okay? And then the tanks, right? So just watch kind of how we spread out and how we look and get an understanding of how you'll be able to position yourself in a better spot to be able to succeed. Like I said, some people are going to be in, so you're going to see kind of these groupings here. Boom, they came back and run out. Sorry about the cough. I'm still dealing with the throat thing. Remember, at 27%, we stop damage, so that way we can position properly. The Vixen moves them out a little bit further. That group goes in. So again, we'll take a pause on it. These are the people that are in the portal, and these are the people that aren't. What we have is this huge wall here of people. Living shadows are going to come through here to Archimonde. Like I said, I'm not sure who's in and who's not at this point because the replay isn't really clean about that. It does have the debuffs and whatnot, and it shows, you know, things like that, for example, shackles and whatnot, but it's hard to discern specifically because of how they're positioning and whatnot. But what we want is everybody to be in this area here, between the portals, towards Archimonde, range, heals, melee, okay? And then just deal with everything appropriately. Another thing too, shackles cannot be broken during Reign of Chaos, so if you and it's going to happen, so when it does, just be smart about the movement, and like I showed in the video review that I did earlier, just position yourself properly, so that way you can avoid it. Remember, it's going to mark the ground, you get out of it, 5 seconds later, boom, it hits, so then you just step back into that spot, and you're good. But what you want to make sure is that you're out of the graphic completely, and then get back to where the graphic ended up exploding, okay? So here we go. We're going to push it. I'm not going to pause anymore now. I just kind of want people to look at where they're at versus where they need to be and think about our strategy and how we're approaching it. Remember, during Infernals, like if you see, there's still people attacking, for example, Archimonde, for example, but they're not attacking the Infernals when the Infernals are up. If the Infernals don't go down by 30 seconds, they're going to AoE explode, and there's, like, we'll be able to use a global cooldown maybe once or twice, but after that, they're going to kill us. All right, third team comes out, so then we got our sacrifice team. I'm going to pull them a little bit further. Remember, the shadows are coming out from here, and what you see is, for example, you've got Kian right here now. You've got a death over in this corner. Like, people all the way out here, when we're all... See how we moved over here? We should all be relatively close to Archimonde in between us and the living shadows as they come through. The shadows are going to come out like that. They're going to come out like this. They're going to come out all over the place based on the position because they randomly target people. That's me running away from the star constantly. See, we tightened up and eventually we kind of got ourselves in the position that we wanted to be in for that moment, which was great. There you go, there's the death. Okay, so I hope this video ended up helping out. Sorry it's so long. Whatever, watch it and learn. That's all I can tell you. Appreciate your time. Have a blessed day.